Hi everyone, delighted to welcome you to our latest webinar and hope you and your families are safe and well. My name is Steve Brockway and I'm Chief Research Officer at Mirror Matchbox UK, and today I'll be sharing with you some new insights on both how to operationally engage and also make meaningful connections with your customers or consumers in the new normal. Recent announcements have started to build a picture of what life will look like post-lockdown in the coming weeks and months ahead, and attention is starting to turn to how to prepare and operate in this new normal. Today, we'll start to shed some light on these areas, and there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. Everyone's automatically muted, just for webinar etiquette, so please use the chat window to pose any questions and we'll round up at the end. Our philosophy is to engage consumers in a way that reflects how they make decisions, and it's deeply rooted in the behavioural science principles of System 1, as well as traditional attitudinal System 2 research. We operate at the intersection of behaviour and emotion through the Feel, Behave, Think framework shown, revealing the full picture of how we make decisions, and we'll show you some examples of this today. And we'll talk more about that at the end. Firstly, we wanted to set the scene with some in-depth qualitative work on grocery shopping during the COVID-19 pandemic. This was undertaken through remote online interviews by our specialist qualitative team. Our qual work helps frame the changing cultural context of shopping, and we've used Maslow's well-established hierarchy of human needs to show this in the chart. Starting at the bottom left, you can see food shopping has basic needs around sustenance and safety. Moving up the hierarchy of needs, there's the social element of shopping. Then moving to the top half, there's a sense of accomplishment by making smart choices when shopping. And finally, feeling that you're a good parent or provider. Now have a look on the right-hand side, where you can see that the paradigm has shifted during the pandemic. Safety and health is now seen as a risk, when previously this was just a given. There are also trust issues with who is sick or not. And at the highest level, grocery shopping now carries responsibility. Am I following the rules? Am I being responsible? People are asking themselves. With all these issues, people felt like shopping had become a stressful rather than a social experience, demonstrating that the paradigm shift has changed. There's been a change in perception and experience. So having established that context, we're now going to take you through some insights that help you operate in the new normal. First, we used a choice-based exercise to establish the top 3 activities people intend to do when lockdown restrictions are eased. Here we can see we miss our social activity, where we relax with friends in restaurants, pubs and coffee shops. We can also expect hair and beauty outlets to be needed. Who doesn't need a haircut out there, including myself? But we also should not underestimate the strong emotional benefits that these outlets provide, allowing you to feel good about yourself. The propensity of home, garden and DIY shopping is ahead of other sectors such as fashion, indicating some areas of the high street will still have challenges, particularly small stores where distancing is harder to achieve. And lastly, look at number 5 on the list. People want the freedom to be able to enjoy parks and open spaces. And given the government statement about parks opening and unlimited exercise, expect these places to become busy during fair weather. This also reveals an insight about the ability to physically distance in these open areas and meet emotional needs for safety, which we'll cover in a bit. So what we've done with this slide is to map the likelihood to participate in an activity shown on the horizontal axes. If you're on the right, it was a more popular activity. If you're on the left, it's a less popular. Then we have overlaid this with emotional concern for safety. The nearer the top, the more concern about safety, and towards the bottom, less concern. And that is displayed as a map. What this gives us is what we call an intersection map of behaviour and emotional concern. We get emotional concern by using one of our System 1 tools called implicit association testing, or IAT for short. This uses reaction time to establish not just if you are concerned, but the strength of that association. The higher up on this map, the stronger your implicit emotional concern about safety there is. Now, there are 3 key observations here. Firstly, despite people missing social activities such as eating out, there are huge emotional barriers of safety when these places eventually reopen. Clear operational standards will need to be put in place to reassure staff and customers, or they will simply avoid and go elsewhere. We will provide guidance on how to mitigate these issues on the next slide. Secondly, towards the top left, there are a number of areas that are mired in safety issues, such as travel, gyms, fast food, and fashion retail. These areas will need to consider not just operational issues, but issuing clear, reassuring comms on how they are providing a safe environment. Fashion retail may need to consider accelerating direct channels, which actually could be a challenge for some operators that are behind the digital curve, such as Primark. And lastly, look at national parks, which benefit from the perceived safety of open spaces. And we can also see that the larger format home, DIY and garden stores have a stronger perception of safety than fashion retail, which are often smaller formats with narrow aisles. So how do you address concerns? These genuine emotional concerns about safety post-lockdown. We conducted another IAT, or implicit association test, to reveal how people emotionally responded to various actions to increase the safety of the environment. The blue colours on the chart indicate people reacted to that action as being more important for safety, with the darker blue showing if that response was fast, intuitive and implicit, where system 1 is driving our choices. Here we can see that the top two most implicit actions are all about how you operate on location. Whatever your business, you must pivot operational processes to enable physical distancing and control over numbers of people. Failure to do this will at best mean people walk away, and at worst create a social media backlash of not acting responsibly, because this is a really emotional issue for people. Another insight is for two areas that have higher explicit scores. This is the light blue area that's shown. People thought these areas were important, but in a slower, more rational way. This means you will need clear communications to convince people before they even decide to visit that you are taking steps to protect staff and visitors. Tell people how your procedures have changed to protect both staff and customers. Use keywords such as deep and frequent cleaning. One area we have observed in grocery retail, who are actually ahead of others and have an advantage in that, is that people have accepted distancing and queuing, but were very unsure about touching trolley and basket handles. An example here is that actually Waitrose are very quick to recognise this and visibly wiped handles for customers waiting in line to reassure them. What does this mean for you? Think of the hotspots in your operation where you may need to implement such measures and tell customers what you are doing. Another good example here is Next, who last week proactively announced its plans, showing that they were sensitive to safety concerns, proposing to only open stores where distancing was possible. So to summarise, we've established insights that are driven by people's emotions, so we know they will impact future behaviour. Firstly, this is not business as usual. You need to pivot your operation and even format to ensure physical distance, controlling numbers, and people feel safe. Secondly, to address strong, rational concerns about safety, now is the time to reach out and communicate what you are doing to protect staff and customers, to reassure them, or they won't even consider you in the first place. So moving on the subject of communication, we'd now like to share with you some new insight that will help shape your communication strategy, ensuring your messaging has meaning and emotionally resonates with the audience. For this, we used our unique System 1 tool called Brand Emotion. This engages people in a way they make decisions. It leverages visual semiotics to reveal what people intuitively associate with a brand or whatever stimuli you show them. Survey participants simply create a collage of 10 images that best represent their feelings and do the same for the ideal or improved brand or experience. It's a data-driven solution with 9,000 images, all linked to specific emotions, validated through over 10 years of prior research across 50 countries. We use the images selected to identify the key emotional associations and focus on the top 3, which are most statistically significant and we know have not occurred by chance. We call these top 3 emotions the emotional signature. So the emotional signature for the current response from brands is a negative one. People feel brands and companies are trying to cooperate and support, but are characterised by being seen as restrictive and controlling. People are projecting their feeling of quarantine and loss of freedom onto brands. In the worst cases, brands have made the wrong decisions, self-nominating themselves as essential, which at best looks disingenuous and at worst opportunistic. Brands that continue down this path will come out as the villain, as consumers have long memories, particularly in times of crisis. Just look at the mistakes Sports Direct and Wetherspoons made, who quickly had to withdraw statements and apologise. Or more recently, the announcements by EasyJet of keeping the middle seat free. This simply did not make sense to passengers and was widely criticised as poorly thought through and not addressing concerns. So let's now look at the emotional signature of the ideal response, which shows a complete step change is needed. Consumers and customers are looking for brands to fill an emotional vacuum that the crisis has created. In times of need, people seek comfort and reassurance, characterised by the content emotion. And they want brands and companies to cooperate and support them in their desire for comfort. But the key insight here is that to connect, brands must do this in a way that shows you understand the issues people face and how they currently feel, which is the empathy emotion. There have been some good examples here, such as the brand Heinz providing 12 million free breakfasts when schools closed via their Magic Breakfast initiative, or the travel brand Expedia automatically moving customers onto flexible booking options to facilitate free cancellations and changes. In essence, the time for brands to engage is now. Brands must leverage their equity sweet spots that showcase the feel-good reasons why the brand is there for them, the consumer. Relationships must be the focus, not the product or service utility. Remember, it's not about you, it's about them. Having completed this exercise and revealed the ideal response, you now have a clear roadmap to improved outcomes for your company or brand. We can see that consumers will build lasting bonds with brands that become part of their lives during this time and make meaningful connections by demonstrating cooperation, comfort, and empathy. Building equity within the hearts and minds of your audience will pay dividends post-lockdown. So the three key takeouts to ensure you make meaningful connections are: firstly, show that you understand. Connect by showing you have a sense of what people are feeling and you can relate to that. Utilize your brand equity spots to provide support and comfort to consumers and the wider public. Ask yourself, how can your brand use its values to achieve well-being for your consumers, customers, and the wider public? Tread carefully around business as usual activity. I want to be really clear here. This is not about stopping being commercial, but instead ensuring you make meaningful connections. Remember, it's not about you, it's about them. So having discussed the results, we wanted to pivot back to the start where we said why this matters. It matters because understanding more holistically how people feel, as well as what they think, enables better decisions and better results for your business. Typically, most research is focused on asking consumers what they think. This elicits a rational response, what people think you want to hear, not what they're really feeling, which is the true influencers of their behaviour. It's why some brands have got their actions and comms so badly wrong during the current pandemic. Let's show you an example. So here's a good example from our COVID tracker of how relying on just asking what people think does not reveal the full picture. The bottom chart maps implicit concern with stated concern, where people told us they thought the economy and order was important. But in the top map, we used a trade-off exercise to better understand behaviour and then overlay that to implicit concern. This provided a much more holistic picture that health and family was really at the heart of driving behaviour, as opposed to stated rational and economic and order issues. This really does show you how, if you're not using the full feel, behave, think framework, then you don't see the full picture. Moreover, we've also revealed that buying extra food is something that was really at the heart of people's decisions. And actually, it's something people simply can't or won't admit to when asked. But when derived, it's clear why shelves were empty at the start of the crisis. And rationally asking people to stop panic buying simply did not work, as food availability is far more important than people are willing to say. So just to finish off, traditional market research relies on just asking what people think. And this does not give you the full picture. Adding the feel and behave elements enables a more holistic understanding of how people are responding emotionally and a better predictor of their behaviour. It's why we focus on the intersection of behaviour and emotion using the feel, behave, think framework. So before we take any questions, we just wanted to summarise by leaving you with 2 key points around why brands and companies must be ready to both communicate and engage. Firstly, start planning now. Use this insight to pivot your operations appropriately so staff and customers feel safe and you are ready to re-engage in the new normal. Secondly, think about your strategic communications. People are giving brands permission to fill the emotional vacuum this health crisis has created as they seek comfort, reassurance, and above all, empathy for how they're feeling. How can your brand leverage its noble purpose to connect and build relationships? What brand values do you have that enable you to connect better with people at this time? But above all, the time to act is now. But remember, it's not just about you, it's about them. So thank you for that. We're now going to turn our attention to questions, which I said at the beginning. I can actually see we've had a few questions in from some of you. We're probably not going to be able to answer all of them, but if you'd like to carry on the conversation, either contact me on this email address, or we'll list your question and we'll reach out to you after the session. The first question I can see, actually there's a number of people that have asked, is one about people switching to online and even considering direct-to-consumer channels. Actually, we've a bit of knowledge here because we've been monitoring people's attitudes, behaviours and feelings in our COVID tracker. And given the strong emotional concern over safety, we expect the already observed trend from bricks and mortar to digital to accelerate. Think of the big becoming bigger, the quick becoming quicker. Our COVID-19 tracker has shown that around 1 in 5 have signed up to digital services in banking and retail for the first time. And around about 9 out of 10 of those that have signed up expect to continue. So this is about the move to digital becoming quicker and faster. It's actually accelerating an existing trend. Tesco also announced last week that customers have changed to less frequent, bigger shops, which does suit the online model. The direct-to-consumer channel is an interesting question. Of course, we don't expect retail to be replaced, but we do think there will be an uptake in direct-to-consumer for brands and product areas that are regular consumables and offer something different. 2 areas I can think of are pet food. So this is a regular consumable and happily bought in bulk. Sites such as tails.com offer this as a direct-to-consumer offer, but they also have a USP around personalised food based on the profile and preferences of your pet. And I've also seen Heinz.com actually, more recently. I was looking at that today, and they're quite interesting because they've created essential bundles of baby food for buying in bulk. I can see we've actually got a couple more questions, but we've now reached the 20-minute time limit. So as promised, we'll stick to our timings, but if you do have a question, do let me know either directly at steve.brockway@marrowmatchbox.com or leave a message in the chat area and we will come back to you. Thank you very much for joining this webinar from Marrow Matchbox UK. We hope you and your families stay safe and well in the coming months.